to the RPM Factory, broadcast to you live via the World Wide Web. Still Chris. Thanks for clicking on my video. We raced this weekend. So the only videos and preparation I have from race day was my wife's videos of on track time. So really wasn't planning on making a video. So there's gonna be a lot of, whatever you call this, narrating here. I'm gonna see if I can do like the talk over thing. Really learning a lot here. I don't even know how to make a thumbnail. So we're like super prepared. We got 3 carts that are scaled and race ready, and so this week really I'm just doing tires. I have an engine to build, but still waiting parts for it. So I posted the victory lane photo, and I said if it gets 100 likes, I'm gonna make a YouTube video of the day. So here we are. Saturday, April 26th, we were intending on going to Ben-Hur for the first time ever. It's a big track. I think it's probably the biggest one I've ever been on. I've been on a couple quarter miles, and that feeling with the open is just, it's this type of stuff that keeps you young, and I love it. And we were going to go try it, but they canceled on Friday. They had pictures on Facebook with standing water, and I think there was more rain to come, so very understandable. Plus it's a 3-hour drive, so thankful they did that on Friday. So the only other option we had that was reasonable was Fremont, 2 hours away, which is where we went 2 weeks ago for test and tune. So that's what we did. Like Fremont, we raced there 7 years ago. Was the only time I ever actually raced there. And crazy enough, I think it was in May, and it had rained that day. So the track was really tacky, which was very tacky. This week it was probably the softest racetrack I've ever been on. So I'm not really sure about the organization or structure of how they run that place, but I am aware that there's new people running it, and very nice people, respectable. They, as far as I know, they were just normal racers. We've pitted by them a few times in the past couple years. Very nice, good pit neighbors. And they've just kind of taken it over, and it seems like, you know, they're good on them for just jumping in and learning and everything. But that's kind of the experience that you get as a racer showing up, if you're picking up what I'm putting down. So the track, it had rained some during the week. Track was super tacky. In 3 and 4, they have some sort of a water drainage situation, like underneath tile or something, because 3 and 4 was, I call them mud waves, when the track's real soft and the go-karts like push the mud, and then the next guy comes and pushes a little farther, and it ends up making like a little mud wave. So I'm still kind of sore, but that was really bad Saturday. So yeah, here's how elementary I am. I wrote down a little plan for this. So basically I'm just going to describe the day, and I'll give you an intro, and then like a transition from hot laps and heat, and then the features. So in that first post of the victory lane photo, I put that I was running my Brute-1 chassis. So what that is a name that I come up with. It's my go-kart, and I like that name. The meaning of it is a good description of, I don't know, just badass heathen warrior. So this go-kart, it's a slack, it's a pursuit, but it started out as a junior champ. It's a 2020 Pursuit Junior Champ, and it was owned by very nice father and son, cool dudes, and they got dumped at the Rumble a couple years ago and pretty well messed the cart up pretty bad. And they had taken it to a slack dealer here or in the area, and I think the cart made it all the way back to slack, and they put it on the jig or whatever they do to decide, and said it was junk. And I think it passed around 3 or 4 guys. My buddy ended up with it. The Ricker's Hot Sauce and Horsepower buddy, and he gave it to me, and I had it up on my wall. I got a hook up there, just hanging there. And this winter I kind of went crazy with projects. I made scale stands and cart stands, and I made a stand for my lathe and my chop saw, and I was kind of out of things to do. And I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go to town on this thing. And if you set that cart on the ground, it did rock. So I knew there was an issue, and the right front caster plate was bad, bent up bad. So I cut the top of the cage, and instantly it sprung out, like it went flat, which I kind of hoped would happen. So since that happened, I kind of progressed. I cut the cage off, and coincidentally enough, the junior champ wheelbase is the exact same as an adult slack pursuit. I could be wrong, but I think if you get an adult senior champ, the wheelbase would be a little bit longer. So anyways, I got the cage off and the seatbelt tabs off, and I got the caster plate straightened out and to where it looked like a go-kart, and I did a bunch of measuring, and the right side frame rail had been smashed in pretty bad. And I just kept going to town. I cut some people call the front axle. I notched it and banged it back and welded all the notches. And I attempted to do that with that right front frame rail, and it was just too thin and it was too far. So I cut it out. I didn't know what to do. And this is gonna blow you away. It's 1.25" OD tubing, and my guy I get my tubing from is, an hour away, and I was just like, whatever. I have this 1.25" thin wall axle I'm not using, so I put an 1.25" thin wall axle on that right front of that frame rail, and I thought, you know what, why stop there? So I cut the rear end off, and I made my own bearing hangers, and they're totally different from each other. I changed a few other things, and so it was kind of a project, which I really don't need to do. I got 3 other pursuits that are proven to be pretty much gold, but it's just fun, I'm not out there trying to win $50,000 on a stalker race, like, why not do this and figure it out and have a go-kart that nobody else can get. So fast forward to Test and Tune a couple weeks ago. It was pretty good go-kart, and plus I hadn't been in a go-kart in 5 months. There was a little bit of an issue on entry. Like, it seemed like as soon as I turned in, it would do like if I moved the right rear end or forward to take lead out of it, like sometimes on a really slick track to keep it from turning. That's what it felt like. Like, it was kind of like diamonding. And so I come home. Well, that day I thought, okay, we got something here. But then I drove my buddy's Expect that same day, thinking that I had a good piece with the Brute-1. I drove his Expect, and it was like grease lightning. And I'm like, oh man, I got a lot of work to do. So I come home and got the saws all out and the grinder and made some changes. We'll leave it at that. And I was hauling around about, do I really want to take it somewhere to race, or do I want to go to another test and tune? And I'm kind of it's hard to make up with my mind in a situation like that. So things worked out. We took it to race at Fremont Saturday, and she's a unit. She's a unit. It turned out it's still, you'll see in this hot lap video, if you look, I had Cindy make her camera angle to see my rotation. That's why I like her doing at Cridersville, to be able to see my rotation on the entry. And it did that diamond washout thing. And, you know, I don't know what it is, but thank God that I can think out there. And I started driving it in lower and harder and slamming on the brakes, and it rotated. And I'm like, it's just tight. It's just a different type of tight feeling. That's all it was. So, and from that point on, I added 2 washers across. I did something else too. I lowered the right front camber to compensate for that. Moved the left rear out to put weight back on the right rear. And she was grease lightning. But yeah, you'll see here in this video of hot laps where it washed out a few times. And then, I don't remember it. I don't know if you actually see me rotate. There's a lot of grip in that track, and we were prepping hard. But also another thing, I had a new motor at the test and tune a couple weeks ago. And the cam I had in it had a ton of bottom end. And I really wanted to get it figured out. I have other motors I could have run, but I ordered, in those 2 weeks, I ordered another cam and dropped it in there. And man, did that make a difference. So without further ado, here's hot laps at Fremont Raceway, and they have open, and it's like really open. You see there's like a SAE cart, there's some, I don't know what they call them, stock appearing idiot series, and there's some wedge bodies, and there's a guy that has which I'll talk more about him later. He has a Briggs & Stratton 305 stroker. I don't know if it's bored out, but he says it's a 342 with a billet head, who ended up being, him and I were the main show of the night. But here's hot laps. Excuse me. I just watched that with you. That's pretty cool, huh? So you can see me wash out a few times, and then the one time where I did rotate real well. So I had to figure it out that all it was basically was just tight. It just felt different, you know, because what I got going on here on this cart is really different. So made that adjustment. We could tell we weren't soft enough on tires from hot laps. So made that adjustment. I think we made a gearing change. There's 6 guys signed up for the class, but it's weird. I don't remember there being 6 guys ever out there at once, maybe for the feature, but we field drawed mid pack, so we were supposed to go out third, and Cindy didn't record it because she don't start it until it goes green. Otherwise, it was like, I don't know what the heck was going on, but you know, like I said, there's new people running it, so they know nothing about open. So somebody's motor kept dying or something. We did like 20 laps before we even went green, so they don't know that like you can't mess around like that with an open. So I was supposed to start third, but I ended up starting second because I think the guy in front of me, because of all the cautions, overheated or whatever. Reading my notes here. Yeah, so I'm feeling good. Feeling about 75% sure I got a good piece. So things were start to get interesting at the end of this heat race. So here we go. All right, so I just watched that with you again too. So that was a pretty interesting finish, huh? So that white wedge body cart, that's the guy that had the bigger motor with the billet head, and I got a 236cc block with a cast head, like basically a cookie cutter small block open, which I generally go Trying to think of the right word. I go for longevity. You know, I build a motor to last 8 races. My compression ratio isn't spectacular. It's good, but anyways, so you can see that he has, coming off the bottom end, he has a lot more power than I do. Well, like I said before, leading up to the green, we had so many freaking caution laps because of a couple guys dying or whatever. Over in the mud waves, over in 3 and 4, I had enough times to figure out the path through there. And I don't think that he had thought about that. And I was trying to time it to get him coming off of 4, because that's where, if I entered 3 a little high and 4 low, which is what I normally do anyways, but it was the smoothest part. The mud waves weren't as bad, and he kept gradually washing out more and more coming off of 4. And right there on the going to the white flag, you can see where I got him. And I was side by side entering 1, and he come down a little bit, pinched me down, which that wasn't bad. And because I entered so low, he kind of did a little crossover. And you could clearly see, even from her angle, that I was still significantly ahead of him entering 3. But he spun me, which luckily he stayed in it, straightened me back out. And at that point, I'm furious. So I'm standing on it, he's standing on it, and we dragged it to the finish, which, you know, he's got the bottom end on me, so they gave it to him, which that's fine. You know, that situation right there, you know, that could be the whole point of this video. That situation right there is kind of like the epitome of go-kart racing. So we got a track crew that doesn't have a lot of experience. So they don't, in my opinion, aren't used to making calls like that. Like, I could see people black flagging him. I could see them putting him behind me for that finish, or nothing at all, which is probably what normally happens, because that's easy, which is fine. I figured that's the way it went, but you know, I've been in that scenario where somehow I get made out to be a bad guy, and it's pretty clear to me that. So after we cross the finish line, the exit ramp is so close, so you got to take a lap. And man, in that lap, I'm thinking to myself, I've been in so many scenarios like that to where somehow I did something wrong, and I'm going through my head, I'm like, nope, I had him going into 1, he come down on me, I didn't even see him going into 3. You can see in the video, I'm like, he spun me, and then he pushed me back, and I'm like, nope, I didn't do anything wrong. And I'm thinking, like, I don't know this guy, never seen him before, don't know where he's from, and I'm like, this is gonna be interesting. So I pull off the track, and I don't know, he didn't see the checker for some reason, so he kept staying out there. It took him a while to get him off. But my wife was shaking. You know, she probably thinks I'm gonna lose my shit. But I've been trying to work on that. I feel like I get the short end of the stick a lot. I'm sure a lot of guys in racing say that, but anyways, dude comes off, and I stayed calm, and ended up being a really good situation. He apologized right away. He did say, I don't think he was aware how far ahead of him I was going into 3 when he did spin me. He thought that he was halfway, but he clearly wasn't. So right there at the exit ramp, he was older, you know, I'd say early 30s. Him and his, I don't know, he had a guy with him that was older, and they were very respectful. We might even shook hands. And he even come back to my pit later on and apologized again. He said that he didn't want to have a reputation for being dirty, and which was very nice, you know. And so much of what we deal with week in and week out with douchebags, would have said that I did because I ran them deep into one, and it's just not worth it, man. There's so much to go-kart racing that we get from that's more than just results. Like I've tried to quit racing, but I need the daily grind. I love being out in the shop and building engines, and when you get in dramatic situations like that at the track, man, it just zaps you, and it's not good for your health. It's not good for anything. So that situation turned out to be really good. And what it did was it set us up for a really good scenario in the feature. So, we both knew we had, oh, by the way, Brute-1, unit. She was scooting, loved it. She earned her stripes. But it set us up for a good feature, and they ended up, look at my notes. They ended up, so back to the first night this crew's running the track. So it was 9 p.m. when they finished the first heat races for everybody. And I was ready. I don't really care about Fremont winning there. I mean, I like the place, but it doesn't mean anything to win or lose over there. So I had proven to myself that Brute-1, the motor, everything is proven, and it's freaking 45 degrees. I'm old, it's cold, I'm ready to go. But at the same time, it's like, we're here. If we're gonna race, we're gonna race. Well, anyways, they had a big meeting. They decided to cancel the second heat, and we rolled right into the feature based on the finishing order of heat 1. I was like, best call of the night, awesome. So, oh yeah, the track moisture kept coming up, and the mud waves over there. I think that they ran them in, which was smart. At that point on, everything went track crew wise, they made good decisions. They tried to run them in, but it's kind of a waste. You walk over, it was literally like hot, chewed up bubble gum. You knew it was gonna wave up again. So that's what they did. We started second to the gentleman in the white and gray number 55 wedge body. And I guess I can go into explain it. It was basically the same line again over there in 3 and 4. It was not as good as it was in the first heat, but you could see the path of least resistance. And actually it was pretty high actually on entry. So I was doing that, and actually there was another kid behind me too watching the video. I didn't realize it, but there was somebody right behind me. Good on him, man. He was fast. But I was trying to get him, the white 55 guy, get him coming off on exit. And he knew that. He's smart. He's got some experience, and he was hugging the bottom. So you'll see a point in there where a light bulb goes off in my head, and it's this is the reasons why you go and run somewhere, that really don't matter. You get all the cobwebs out. But anyways, I'm like, okay, well, I'm not gonna get around him, but what I can do is let him know that I'm here. So I started gently, and you can see it a few times, gently just laying my nose onto him. And I think that it worked. And you can tell. Here it is. So that worked out. You can see the point in which I started to communicate with him and let him know I was there. So my advice is, that should never be your plan, but that's racing. And I believe that I did it very respectably. If I was to coach a younger racer, I would say that the best time to do that would be in a straightaway. That's the most respectable time. And what that does is it just gets in their head. And so when they're driving it in on entry, they might go in too hard or it just kind of shakes them up a little bit. Never ever do that on entry. Never do that on entry. Do the best you can to keep from doing that. That is the most vulnerable time, and that's how you're going to piss people off, and that's how they come back and retaliate, and that's what happens a lot in go-karting, and that's why I stick with opens. But as you can tell, I did it, apex, exit, and I think really what happened was the mud waves got so bad over there on exit on 4 that his nose started catching, and that's how it worked out. But and then at the second half of that race, man, I didn't know that somebody was right behind me, man. That was cool. That I didn't even know that. No, couldn't tell you who that was. I was taking it a little bit easier in 3 and 4, but I thought I was way out ahead of everybody. But so that's a wrap on Fremont, April 27th, 26th. Still no big plan to really make a YouTube channel. If you guys share and like and things become worthwhile, it's just, I'm like a pretty intense race day guy. So like, it's not realistic to make YouTube videos of me sitting here commentating of videos. If you watch YouTube videos, you gotta have cameras at the track and talking at the track, and I'm in kicking ass and taking names mode. I'm not worried about my stupid cell phone or anything like that. But you never know. I think what we do is pretty entertaining. I think that if I really broke things down, you guys would really love it. But I'm still kind of an introvert, believe it or not. Putting yourself out there all the time, it's not really my thing. But, if it could help people or make go-kart racing again, it'd be cool. Maybe get my sponsors' names out there. My name. So that's really about it. Let me check my notes again. I want to thank my wife. Couldn't do any of this without her. That's just not like a figure of speech. Like, it's legit. She is as much a part of any results we get as I am. She's an awesome woman. My buddy Ryan was there in the black wedge, number 22. Everybody in my network, man, it's great when you have a night like that, and it seems like, you're doing what you're supposed to do and everything makes sense, and it was very nice, very nice. Got home at 2 a.m. though, but that's how it goes. So we busted our butt yesterday, and she worked first and I worked second, so I won't see her until Friday. We're going to Eldora, so we got the go-kart ready to go for Test and Tune at Cridersville, May 2nd or 3rd. All right, thanks.